Darrell Jazz Johnson, Gospel Herald, CitySportsReport.com. I'm here with Nick Metallinos from Starting Five Online. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, thanks. So today's like a holiday. It's the first game that we're covering of the basketball season. So let's jump right into the team that we'll be watching tonight that will cover this season, the New York Knicks. What are your thoughts on the 2014-2015 team?
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, they've undergone some changes. Starting at the top, obviously Phil Jackson's come in, Derek Fisher implementing a whole new system. I think they'll do better than last year, but it's going to take some time, unfortunately, for this system to gel. I do think they'll get there eventually. The East is not as weak as it was in the past. There are a lot more teams now. Charlotte, Atlanta. Indiana's going to drop off, unfortunately. So I think the Knicks will probably squeeze into that maybe 7th or 8th playoff spot. But it's just interesting to see the whole dynamic of the team. Obviously, how is Derek Fisher going to do as a first-year coach? Is the whole team going to buy into the system? Will Melo, he's the leader. It's got to start with him, with his team. And I've noticed in the preseason when things got difficult, at certain times they sort of fell back into isolation. So we've got to see how they implement this system for a full 48 minutes over the course of a season.
Much has been talked about the triangle offense. It's been kind to Michael Jordan. It's been kind to Kobe Bryant. How kind will it be to Carmelo Anthony?
Well, it was kind to Michael Jordan because he had Scottie Pippen alongside of him. It was kind to Kobe Bryant. He had a guy called Shaq running with him as well. I do think, I think Jeff Van Gundy was right in what he said recently, where it's players that win games and not systems. And I do get what he was trying to say with that, because you can run the triangle, with various teams, but if you haven't got the right personnel, it's not going to be as successful. So I do think the Knicks do need somebody else. They've got some cap room coming up next year. Bargnani and Stoudemire coming off the books. If they can get a guy like Marc Gasol, I think that's going to help them out tremendously.
You mentioned Stoudemire. He's in the starting lineup tonight. Something that head coach Mike Woodson seemed reluctant to do. What type of Amari Stoudemire do you think we're going to get this season?
I think he's going to play well. I mean, if you look back at his final 20, 25 games over last season, he was looking good. Now, by all accounts, he's 100% healthy. He says he's moving well. He hasn't moved this well since he was 19. So I think Amari's going to play well. But if you're depending on him to sort of give you that output that he was early in his career, then, you're going to struggle, because he's not that guy anymore, but he can be a valuable contributor.
Real quick, let's take a trip over the Brooklyn Bridge to Barclays Center. The 2014-2015 Brooklyn Nets. Very different team. They, too, have a new system with a new head coach. What are your thoughts on the Nets this year?
If you look at that roster, you would sort of say that they've taken a step back this season. The last 2 years was all about championship or bust. Unfortunately, it was bust. They're not really sort of, trumpeting that this year. They're more about, all right, we're coming in quietly, we're going to do our thing. But, honestly, I don't see them being a threat. If anything, they'll be battling with the Knicks for those 7, 8, and probably the Detroit Pistons. I like to look at Detroit, sort of for those 7, 8 spots in the Eastern Conference.
Final question, just some overall NBA thoughts. Who has impressed you over the offseason, and who are you most impressed with going into the season?
Who has impressed me most in the offseason? Probably the Cleveland Cavaliers. They made some major changes. Mike Miller, Sean Marion, some guy that wears 23. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with. Obviously, the team that the Knicks are playing tonight, the Bulls, probably the deepest team they've had in a long, long time. If Derrick Rose is fully healthy, I think it's going to be Chicago and Cleveland in the East. The West is wide open, isn't it? It's wide open. San Antonio, Kevin Durant's going to come back eventually, and OKC is going to be a problem when he does. Houston, there's so many teams in the West. So, I picked OKC to make it through the finals, so I'm going to stick with them.
All right. Let the people out there know where they can find your work.
Starting5online.com, and you can hit me up on Twitter at Nick Metallinos. Happy to have a chat.
All right. Thanks a lot, Nick.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.